Have you ever met someone famous and had an unforgettable experience? Sometimes, a simple encounter can turn into a life-changing moment. Emily never imagined that her ordinary shift at the restaurant would turn into the most memorable day of her life. She had been working as a waitress in a cozy but elegant restaurant for years, serving all kinds of customers. However, on this particular evening, something extraordinary happened. The restaurant was busier than usual, and Emily was rushing from table to table, ensuring that every guest was well taken care of. As she balanced a tray full of dishes, she heard a soft murmur spreading through the room. "Is that really him?" whispered one of the customers at a nearby table. Emily turned her head slightly and followed the direction of their gaze. Her heart nearly stopped. Sitting at one of the corner tables was Kim Soo-hyun. She had seen his face countless times on television and in movies, but never in real life. His presence alone made the atmosphere in the restaurant change. Some people tried to act normal, while others stole quick glances at him, whispering among themselves. Emily took a deep breath and checked her notepad. To her surprise, she was assigned to serve his table. Her hands trembled slightly as she approached. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to our restaurant. May I take your order?" she asked, doing her best to keep her voice steady. Kim Soo-hyun looked up at her with a warm smile. "Good evening. Everything looks delicious. What do you recommend?" Emily was momentarily taken aback. She had expected him to be reserved or distant, but instead, he was polite and approachable. She quickly composed herself and suggested a few of the restaurant's signature dishes. He nodded in appreciation and placed his order. As she walked away, she could feel the envious stares of some customers. But she didn't let that distract her. She wanted to make sure his experience at the restaurant was perfect. Little did she know, the most surprising part of the night was yet to come. Emily tried to focus on her work, but she couldn't ignore the excitement bubbling inside her. She was serving Kim Soo-hyun. As she prepared his order, she noticed that her colleagues kept stealing glances in his direction. Some whispered among themselves, while others tried to act natural but failed miserably. "You're so lucky, Emily," one of the other waitresses whispered as she passed by. "I wish I could take his order." Emily smiled nervously. It was exciting, yes, but also nerve-wracking. She wanted to give him the best service possible without seeming overly eager. Once the food was ready, she carefully placed everything on a tray and walked toward his table. "Here you go, sir," she said as she gently placed the dishes in front of him. Kim Soo-hyun looked up and smiled. "Thank you," he said with sincerity. Emily nodded and stepped back, but just as she turned to leave, she heard him speak again. "Excuse me, miss," he said politely. She quickly turned back, her heart skipping a beat. "Yes, sir? Is everything okay?" He chuckled softly. "Everything is perfect. I just wanted to thank you for your recommendation. This dish is amazing." Emily felt a wave of relief and gratitude wash over her. "I'm glad you like it, sir," she said with a genuine smile. Kim Soo-hyun nodded before turning his attention back to his meal. As she walked away, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She had managed to serve a celebrity without embarrassing herself. However, what she didn't know was that the night was far from over. Because when it was time for him to pay the bill, something completely unexpected happened. As the evening went on, Emily continued to check on Kim Soo-hyun's table, making sure everything was perfect. Each time she approached, he was kind and polite, thanking her with a warm smile. She couldn't help but notice how different he was from some of the other high-profile customers who visited the restaurant. Many celebrities were cold, demanding, or treated the staff as invisible. But Kim Soo-hyun? He treated her with the same respect as any other guest. Eventually, his meal came to an end. As Emily cleared his plates, she felt a bittersweet feeling. It had been an unforgettable experience to serve him, and she knew she might never get the chance again. "Would you like anything else, sir?" she asked politely. Kim Soo-hyun shook his head. "No, thank you. Everything was excellent." Emily nodded and quickly brought him the bill, placing it carefully on the table. "Take your time," she said with a small bow before stepping back to give him space. But then, as she turned to walk away, something happened that made her stop in her tracks. Kim Soo-hyun took the bill, glanced at it, and then reached into his pocket. He pulled out his wallet, but instead of simply paying the exact amount, he took out a large stack of bills. Emily's eyes widened. He was leaving a tip, an enormous one. At first, she thought he had made a mistake. No one left that much money as a tip. She hesitated for a moment before cautiously stepping forward. "Sir, I think you may have overpaid," she said hesitantly. Kim Soo-hyun looked up at her with a gentle expression. "No, I didn't," he said simply. "You deserve it." Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The entire restaurant had gone silent. People had started to notice what was happening, and whispers spread across the room. But Emily wasn't thinking about the attention. She was too overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness in front of her. But sir, this is too much," she stammered. Kim Soo-hyun smiled softly. "You gave me excellent service," he said. "This is my way of showing appreciation." Emily felt her throat tighten. She had worked in the restaurant for years, but never had a customer treated her like this. Tears welled up in her eyes. And then, something even more surprising happened. For a moment, Emily was frozen in place, unable to process what had just happened. Kim Soo-hyun had not only left an incredibly generous tip, but he had done so with complete sincerity, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The entire restaurant had fallen into a hushed silence. Customers and staff alike were watching the scene unfold, whispering amongst themselves. "Is he really leaving that much money?" someone murmured. "That's way more than the bill," another voice whispered. Emily felt her hands trembling as she looked down at the stack of bills on the table. It was more money than she made in weeks of work. "Sir, I don't know what to say," she finally managed to whisper. Kim Soo-hyun stood up, adjusting his coat. "Just keep doing your job with the same kindness and dedication," he said with a warm smile. "That's all the thanks I need." Emily's throat tightened, and she blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. She had never expected something like this. "But why?" she finally asked. Kim Soo-hyun looked at her thoughtfully before answering. "Because I know what it's like to work hard and not always be appreciated. People like you make a difference every day, and you deserve to be recognized for it." Emily covered her mouth with her hand. She had been working tirelessly for years, dealing with difficult customers, long shifts, and moments where she felt invisible. And now, one of the most famous actors in the world was standing in front of her, telling her that her work mattered. She felt a single tear slip down her cheek. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Kim Soo-hyun simply nodded. But just as Emily thought the moment couldn't get any more emotional, he did something else that left everyone speechless. Emily wiped the tear from her cheek, still overwhelmed by what had just happened. She had never expected to be noticed, much less appreciated, by someone like Kim Soo-hyun. But just as she thought the moment had reached its peak, he surprised everyone once again. Kim Soo-hyun reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a neatly folded piece of paper. He placed it gently on top of the stack of bills and slid it toward Emily. "This is something extra," he said with a small smile. Emily hesitated before carefully picking it up. As she unfolded the paper, her breath caught in her throat. It was a handwritten note. She quickly scanned the words, her heart pounding. "Thank you for your kindness and hard work. People like you make the world a better place. Never stop being yourself." Her hands trembled slightly as she read the note again. It wasn't just the money that moved her, it was the sincerity behind his gesture. The entire restaurant was silent, waiting to see her reaction. Emily looked up at him, her eyes shining with emotion. "Sir, this means so much to me," she whispered. Kim Soo-hyun gave her a gentle nod. "I'm glad," he replied. "I hope it makes your day a little brighter." Emily let out a small laugh, still holding the note close to her chest. You've done more than that, she said softly. Kim Soo-hyun glanced at his watch, realizing it was time for him to leave. As he adjusted his coat, he gave her one last smile. Take care, he said, and then, with a polite bow, he turned and walked toward the exit. Emily stood frozen in place, watching as the door slowly closed behind him. The whispers around the restaurant grew louder. Some people were in awe, others still processing what they had just witnessed. A fellow waitress approached Emily, eyes wide. Did that really just happen? She asked in disbelief. Emily looked down at the note and the generous tip still on the table. Yes, she whispered. And I don't think I'll ever forget it. But what she didn't know was that this moment would change her life in ways she never imagined. Emily stood there for a long moment, holding the note tightly in her hands. She couldn't believe what had just happened. Her colleagues rushed toward her, their eyes wide with excitement. Emily, that was incredible, one of them exclaimed. I can't believe Kim Soo-hyun did that, another added. He didn't just leave you a huge tip, he actually wrote you a personal note. Emily nodded, still in shock. It wasn't about the money. It was about the kindness, the recognition, and the fact that he had taken the time to acknowledge her hard work. Just then, the restaurant manager walked up to her. Unlike the others, he wasn't smiling. Emily, can I see you in my office for a moment? He asked. Emily's heart dropped. Was she in trouble? Inside the manager's office, she sat nervously across from him. Emily, he started, tapping his fingers on the desk, what happened tonight was unexpected. Emily gulped. Yes, sir. The manager sighed, then leaned forward slightly. I've been watching you work for a long time. You've always been dedicated, but tonight, you showed something more than just good service. You handled the situation with professionalism, grace, and kindness. Emily blinked, confused. I just did my job. The manager smiled for the first time. And that's exactly why I want to offer you a promotion. Emily's breath caught in her throat. A promotion? He nodded. Yes. I want you to become the head waitress. You've proven that you can handle pressure, treat customers with respect, and set an example for the rest of the staff. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. This was more than she ever expected. First, Kim Soo-hyun's kindness, and now this? Was this really happening? She swallowed hard and finally managed to speak. Sir, I don't know what to say. The manager chuckled. A simple yes would be fine. Emily smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. Then, yes. I accept. But she had no idea that the surprises weren't over yet. Emily walked out of the manager's office in a daze, her heart still racing. A promotion? This night was turning into something she never could have imagined. As she stepped back into the dining area, her co-workers surrounded her with excitement. What happened? One of them asked eagerly. Emily took a deep breath before answering. I just got promoted to head waitress. The restaurant erupted in cheers. Her colleagues clapped, some even hugging her, celebrating her well-earned success. You deserve it, Emily, one of the chefs called from the kitchen. Still overwhelmed by everything, Emily sat down for a moment, holding the note that Kim Soo-hyun had left her. She knew she had worked hard all these years, but tonight, for the first time, she felt truly seen. The next day, Emily arrived at work earlier than usual, eager to start her new role. As she tied her apron, one of the receptionists approached her with a puzzled expression. Emily, you won't believe this, she said, handing her an envelope. This came for you this morning. Emily furrowed her brows as she took the envelope. There was no sender's name on it. She carefully opened it and pulled out a neatly folded letter. As soon as she saw the first line, her breath caught in her throat. Dear Emily. It was from Kim Soo-hyun. Her hands trembled slightly as she continued reading. I wanted to take a moment to thank you again for your kindness. The way you treated me last night reminded me why small moments matter. Sometimes, in the world I live in, people treat me differently, but you made me feel like just another guest, and that meant more than you know. Emily felt her chest tighten with emotion as she read further. I hope this letter finds you well. And I hope you never forget that the work you do, no matter how simple it may seem, has a real impact on people. Wishing you all the success in the world. At the bottom, he had signed his name. Emily pressed the letter against her chest, tears welling up in her eyes. This wasn't just about meeting a celebrity. It was about kindness, recognition, and the power of a simple, genuine interaction. She wiped her tears away, smiling. She would never forget this moment. But little did she know, this was just the beginning of something even bigger. Emily folded the letter carefully, holding it close to her chest. She still couldn't believe everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. Not only had she met Kim Soo-hyun, but he had gone out of his way to show his appreciation, not just with a generous tip, but with words that truly touched her heart. For the first time in years, she felt valued beyond just being a waitress. She took a deep breath and placed the letter in her apron pocket, determined to carry that motivation with her every day. As days passed, the story of her encounter with Kim Soo-hyun spread throughout the restaurant. Customers who had been there that night shared the moment on social media, and soon, her story was reaching beyond just their small town. One afternoon, her manager approached her with a smile. Emily, we've been getting a lot of attention lately, he said. Emily tilted her head in confusion. What do you mean? He handed her a tablet, showing her an article that had been published online. Kim Soo-hyun's heartwarming gesture for a hard-working waitress goes viral. Emily's eyes widened as she scrolled through the article. The story had spread everywhere. People were commenting about how kindness still existed, how celebrities like Kim Soo-hyun were making a difference, and how hard-working people like her deserved recognition. She felt her cheeks flush as she read the comments. She seems like such a sweet person. She totally deserved that moment. This just shows how important it is to treat everyone with respect. You never know what impact it might have. Emily looked up at her manager, still in shock. This is unbelievable. Her manager chuckled. Believe it. And because of all the positive attention, we've been getting more customers than ever. People want to come here and meet the famous waitress from the Kim Soo-hyun story. Emily laughed softly, shaking her head. I was just doing my job, she said. Exactly, her manager replied. And that's what made it so special. That evening, as Emily finished her shift, she stepped outside to feel the cool air on her face. She had always dreamed of making a difference, even in a small way. She never expected it would happen like this. She pulled out Kim Soo-hyun's note once more, rereading the last line. Wishing you all the success in the world. She smiled to herself, knowing that success wasn't just about money or fame. It was about moments like this, moments that proved kindness and hard work truly mattered. She took a deep breath and walked home, knowing that this was just the beginning of something even greater. If you made it this far, write in the comments, kindness always comes back.